Hi everyone. We've done lots of hard work learning crystal healing techniques and crystal surgery procedures, and it's time to kick back and relax with some crystal stories. I find that some of the best learning happens when we share our crystal stories, and that's what I'd like to begin with today. I do also want to tell you that how I got started with crystals and learned about spirit guides and learned how to communicate with crystals. A lot of interesting adventures are in my book, Everyday Magic. And this is my book, Everyday Magic. It is now available as an ebook, I'm thrilled to say, and it's available on Amazon, in Kindle, and on Apple. And you can get it there now, and it has many of these stories to do with how I got started with crystals and crystal healing, energy healing, spirit guides, shamanism, learning about intuition, all in this book, Everyday Magic. And you can purchase it now very easily. Just go to the Apple Store or go to Amazon to get it on Kindle, and there it is. And so I will share some of the stories that are in Everyday Magic, because I do want to talk about the crystals and the stories that they've asked me to share with you, because they are very fun and educational. So I got started with crystals when I was 10 years old. My father is from Namibia, and we went, used to be Southwest Africa, and we went up there for a vacation and to see their friends. And they lived in a very small town called Keetmanshoop. The population was 1,000 people. And we went into my dad's friend's house, and we went in through the front door, and there was a long hallway, and we came out the back door, and at the front door was a lawn and hibiscus and flowers, but at the back door it was desert, just dust, brown dust, sand, a little bit of wind blowing it around for atmosphere. But there was something spectacular in this desert backyard, and that was a huge rose quartz rock garden. And that rose quartz struck my 10-year-old girl's heart right at the core. And so I looked at that rose quartz, and I was literally stopped in my tracks. Literally. I just stood there and looked. And it was my first experience of knowing that something profound was happening to me. I just knew something was happening, and I just stood there. And then I said to my dad, I know I'm going to collect crystals one day. And he said, Viv, that's an expensive hobby. He was right. It is an expensive hobby, and if you're watching this, you probably know already. Yes, that is an expensive hobby, but worth every penny. Worth every penny, and it's an investment rather than an expense, is the way that I look at it. So on that trip in Namibia, I also acquired just one little stone for myself at the museum in Windhoek, and that was a piece of Amazonite. This is Amazonite, and it was a piece not quite as shiny and gemmy as this one, but a little piece, and it was in a bubble pack, so I couldn't even touch it, but I could look at this extraordinary color, and I could really look at the crystal, and I had to connect with it through this plastic bubble pack. But I did. I loved that little Amazonite stone, and I was very pleased to have it. And so that's how I began at the age of 10, with seeing rose quartz and falling in love with it, and then seeing the Amazonite and looking at it regularly. I put it on my desk in my bedroom and looked at that Amazonite every single day. I don't know where it is now, come to think of it, but there we are. And that was the beginning. And then there was a long period of time when I had nothing to do with crystals. I didn't have any, I didn't think about them. It was just one of those things that was out of my reach, and I needed to wait. And the next time that crystals came into my life was when I was in England in 1983, finishing my training. And I met a woman called Susie Holbeach, and she actually specialized in past life regression, She also knew a lot about crystals, and I was absolutely amazed. She seemed to know what to do with them, and for me, crystals were just objects of extreme admiration and awe, and there was no way I knew what could one possibly do with a crystal. But Susie Holbeach, she seemed to know exactly what to do with crystals and how to access their energy and also to use them to assist her in bringing us into a past life regression, which was very, very powerful and life-altering experience, both on the side of the crystals and encountering them in the session, and also the past life regression itself. Susie Holbeach, very extraordinary woman, born in Sri Lanka, and she lived in England as well, and actually eventually moved to South Africa. She's passed on now, but her legacy continues. And so I went back from England, where I finished my training, and went back to Cape Town, South Africa, and then on a trip one day to the garden route, we went to a village called Knysna. It's a seaside resort, and it's a coastal town, and we were in this little town, and you book into the hotel, and then, you know, as one always does, one walks around, and there was what we called in South Africa a junk shop, which is where there's second-hand items, used items, not necessarily gently either, but that's what in those days we called that a junk shop. And so there was this junk shop, and we went in, and I found this beauty. And this is what we call the Knysna crystal. So it's a milky quartz point, and it is celestial. Now, none of these things, of course, did I understand or know about. And there it has these beautiful extra crystal bodies on the main crystal, and this was my new friend. I fell upon it. I was thrilled to get such a nice big crystal. I didn't mind that it's milky quartz. I have no recollection how much I paid for it, but it wasn't very much, and it came home with us and then came across the ocean with us to the United States of America. So let me tell you how this Knysna crystal got me started with crystal healing. We, as I said, we shipped it across the ocean, brought it here to Cincinnati, and placed it on a stand in our workroom. And one day when I was giving a session to one of my clients, who actually happened to be the Mother Superior of her order, yes, she was a nun, and in the middle of her session, I had just got this compulsion to go get this crystal. And this crystal made me point it at her body like that. And then, I don't know if you've ever had a dog that takes you for a walk, where it pulls on the leash and just pulls you along. That's what this crystal did to me. It just pulled me along, showing me where it wanted to go, what it wanted to do, made me be its arms and legs, wave it around, do movements. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I did notice that this crystal was heading for joints. And my client was absolutely silent. I was completely silent. It was that kind of hush that comes over a space when something profound is happening. And this crystal was showing me something and doing something. Clearly it was to do with crystal healing. What exactly I didn't know. And at the end of that, I said to Sister Anne, "Do you have arthritis?" And she said, "Yes, I do. I have a lot of pain in my joints, but I'm feeling much better now." And that was the beginning of me doing crystal healing. It just did itself. I just followed the flow. I followed the thoughts that were coming into my head that didn't seem to be from me, and clearly just did what I was supposed to do. I'll never forget that day. It was extraordinary, just extraordinary. my next encounter with crystals was pretty different. It was in Cincinnati. We were living here already, and we were in a shopping mall. We actually were eating dinner in a Chinese restaurant, and when we came out of the Chinese restaurant, a strange thing happened to me. I felt like I'd gone through a portal and I was in a time warp and I was in a different dimension. I essentially stepped out of the restaurant entrance into a shopping mall, a regular shopping mall, not some kind of special Harry Potter shopping mall, and went into this other dimension. And I just stood there. Our whole family was there, my husband, our 2 sons, and myself. And I literally went into a trance, and I thought, now what's going on? And I looked at Neil and I said, there's something somewhere in this mall that I'm supposed to buy. So I walked down that piece of the mall and went into the main section, and there was something different in the mall that day, and there was a craft fair. And so there were all these stalls set up in the middle of the mall. And I thought, well, that's helpful. That was reassuring, because I realized that, okay, there is something different. And so I then walked down through the craft stalls and looked for what could be interesting to me. And there was something very interesting to me. And that was, I saw crystals hanging on a jewelry tree, hanging on chains and cords, and I went, oh, this must be it. And I walked right up to this jewelry tree, and my hand just shot out and grabbed a crystal and wouldn't let go. It was quite dramatic. In fact, I can't make it dramatic enough, and it was an extremely dramatic watershed moment of my life. So let's have a look what that crystal looks like, because it is here with me today, has asked me to tell you its story, and here we are. This is the something somewhere that I was supposed to buy in the Tri-County shopping mall. And here it is, my magnificent red phantom crystal. Now this is a very, very important crystal to everyone who cares about anything I have to say about crystals, because it was truly the start of crystal surgery, and I'll explain that on another day.